As they spend more and more time with this game, hunters may find themselves using weapons that just don't season their brisket like they did when they were still new. They may have been using the sword and shield or the dual blades and realize that those two weapons aren't even horribly different. That the dual blades is essentially just holding a second sword rather than a shield, which is literally how that weapon was conceived. If you've become comfortable and complacent with monster hunting, and you also feel that YOLO is not only a lifestyle, but is also a legitimate strategy to use in battle, then boy do I have the weapon for you. What we have here is the Switch Axe. Howdy y'all, my name is Kanai96 and welcome to the Agony of Gaming, the satirical review series with jokes watered down by cringe and facts overshadowed by bias. Before starting work on this video, I had never even touched the Switch Axe. At least not intentionally. There was this one time in Monster Hunter World where I accidentally equipped it during the Witcher event, not realizing I could just switch weapons at any time, and tried fighting the story mode Leshen with it. And anybody who's fought that thing could probably guess that I didn't have a good time. Hey, drop a like on the video if whenever you did that event you made sure the Puke made it all the way to the end. Now, seeing that I had no experience with this weapon, and considering how the charge blade went, I wasn't entirely looking forward to it. From the outside looking in, anyways. I'll be honest, I was pretty intimidated. That was, however, until I went on my first hunt, which was actually the first arena quest that has the Switch Axe. After a few minutes, this weapon already started to grow on me. Now granted, I was fighting a bird brain, but something about using the sword mode in particular, which we'll talk about here in a bit, just feels so natural. The big swooshing attacks that combo super easily make you really embrace the whole idea of small anime man uses comically large weapon to commit animal abuse. After the Kuluyaku was dealt with, in a not so competitive amount of time, I hunt worse when I'm being timed, okay? Leave me alone. I was feeling confident for some reason and decided to go on the next event quest that has two monsters of significantly higher caliber than Birdbrain. This basic Nargacuga promptly put me in my place. Oh, never mind. After getting #humbled by the Morning Star with wings, I spent some quality time in the training area with the legend himself, Licorice, where he informed me on the error of my ways. You said to look at your build. How do I do that? Yo, what the heck? How did you do this? Oh my goodness. Right? Stun resistance and recovery up? What the hell have you done?
I was making this. It just kept going.
Wow.
I was like, geez.
God, what have you done? The Switch Axe may remind you of this or that, but it is a wholly unique weapon. The absurdly large blade, coupled together with a slow movement speed, instantly made me try to use it like a greatsword, where the high damage lets you get away with hit-and-run tactics, especially if you're like me and those tactics involve more running than hitting. I had to learn real quick that when it comes to the Switch Axe, that just isn't going to fly, and trying to compare it to anything else is just going to get you in trouble. So now let's finally talk about why this weapon requires a little more, I'm thinking of a word between 1 and 10, requires more finesse. Delving into the simple basics, the Switch Axe, as the name kind of implies, is a weapon that has two different forms that you can switch between. The default axe mode has a standard movement speed with an average damage output, while the sword mode has an incredibly high damage output with a ridiculously slow movement speed, which is honestly something that confuses and upsets me. The only thing that changes is the weight of the weapon seems to transfer backwards closer to the hilt, which would make it easier to lug around, not harder. I'm guessing it's for the sake of weapon balance, but come on, I just want to be overpowered, Capcom. Is that too much to ask for? Whatever, I'm getting off topic. Since the Monster Hunter community has a general consensus that more damage equals more better, when using this weapon, you'll want to be in the sword mode for as much as possible. Unfortunately, it is not indefinite and relies on a charging mechanic, kind of similar to how you have to charge up the shield when using the charge blade. Although this happens naturally, without relying on doing a combo, you see why comparing doesn't really work that well. Let us briefly cover the axe mode and then go into all of the discharging shenanigans you're going to get into with the sword mode. If I had to describe the axe mode in a single sentence, it would be, this mode exists solely as a means for the hunter to not be useless while waiting for their sword mode to recharge. It really reminds me of demon mode for the dual blades. If you have the ability, then be in the mode that deals more damage.
Okay, but what if I like to rely on the axe mode's mobility to keep me out of danger,
A surprisingly valid argument, but here's a more valid one. Get good, scrub! One of the best uses I could possibly think of for the axe mode is the heavy slam. By pressing the A button repeatedly, your hunter will do the wild swing. If you press the X button after doing 3 attacks of the wild swing, you'll do what is known as the heavy slam, whereupon you will gain a buff to your sword mode to charge up its amped state slightly faster. Oh, that's right, the switch axe has not 1, but 2 charging mechanics, and for that reason alone, it should be a weapon that I hate. But it is actually the opposite. So now let's discuss why that is by talking about the sword mode. You can use ZR to switch between axe mode and sword mode at almost any time, even incorporating it into doing combos. And since you'll potentially be doing this in the heat of combat, you will want 3 levels of the rapid morph skill to make the process slightly faster. Now all this is assuming you have enough charge in this little bar here to get past this meter. What is that, like 40%? I don't know, it doesn't matter. Without enough charge to get past this point, your hunter will do what is known as a reload, which is a slow animation that has a high probability of sending you back to camp on a cart if you do it in the middle of a fight. So reloading is something you should strive to avoid. Thankfully, that's pretty easy, using a certain skill that we will talk about later.
Damn you!
When it comes to sword mode, you have 2 primary sets of combos that involve pressing the A button a few times and pressing the X button a few times. And while you are doing this, you will gradually charge up the switch axe's amped state, which is indicated by this glowing ring around the icon up here. Amped state does a lot of things for you, but most importantly, it makes you deal more damage. And if you have been taking notes from earlier in the video, you will know that more damage equals more better. While in axe mode with the amp state activated, your normal attacks will no longer bounce off of hard targets. Which is a whole lot of who cares, because sword mode already don't give a crap about hard targets. But more importantly, you can also do the Amped Elemental Discharge. If you have an amped weapon and enough gauge to still be in sword mode, by pressing X plus A, your hunter will stab forward and latch onto the monster, where then you can spam the X button to unleash a myriad of elemental explosions to deal an incredible amount of combined damage. However, you are not immune to damage while doing this, so if the monster is getting frisky, it can get real unhealthy for you real fast. It is definitely a high risk, high reward situation. For most users, this is like the bread and butter of the switch axe. And once you get comfortable with the weapon, it's hard to not just spam this move out at every opportunity, because it is awesome and incredibly effective. And yes, I'm not too proud to admit that it has gotten me killed like a whole bunch. Now, all this extra elemental damage is dictated by the files that your switch axe has. Lore-wise, I don't know if these are the same files used for the charge blade, but practically they function differently. Your switch axe files have a direct relationship with the weapon's amped state, because when it is amped, all of your attacks will unleash an extra burst of damage with various properties. Those being poison, dragon, and paralysis, which are pretty self-explanatory. Exhaust, which drains the monster's stamina faster. Elemental, which boosts the elemental damage that the weapon has inherently. And power, which is just a raw damage increase. The files also determine how fast you can achieve an amp state with the switch axe. I'll just have the numbers up on screen because going into further detail would be boring! The lower the number, the easier it is to get the weapon amped. Power files may have you deal the most competitive damage, but they're so slow to charge up. Freaking dragon and poison files charge up like 3 times faster. It's ridiculous. Ugh. Charging mechanics really dill my pickle, if you know what I mean. Let's change the subject and talk about some skills. First, we have the forward slash and the forward overhead slash. The forward slash is the classic forward attack for the switch axe, and the second one is the new boy on the block that deals more damage but is slower to execute. Just try them both and pick whichever one helps you sleep better at night. Then we have the alternative to the Amped Elemental Discharge, which we talked about earlier, the Compressed Finishing Discharge. The benefits of this move is that it's super flashy, faster to do, and doesn't require your weapon to be amped in order to use, with the downside of doing less damage overall and having some friendly fire side effects towards your teammates. But if you are playing solo or your teammates' well-being is of no concern to you, this is a pretty solid choice. Next up we have the Invincible Gambit, which is a move that exists. And then we have the Soaring Wyvern Blade, which is an awesome aerial attack that is great for mounting monsters and charging up your weapon's amp state incredibly quickly, on top of dealing a decent amount of damage. I swear, being able to use this move for a single wire bug almost feels dirty. If the Soaring Wyvern Blade did cost 2 wire bugs, I would still use it over the other skill that I've already forgotten the name of. Finally, let's briefly return to the Switch Gauge, the thing that lets you use your amazing sword mode. There are only 2 ways for the hunters to influence this bar's charge rate, one of them being the focus skill, which I didn't even know it did for the entire 3 days I was using this weapon. Thanks, Licorice, I blame you for this. I mean, he probably told me on Sunday, the first day I was making a build for this weapon, but he definitely didn't tell me more than once, so that's still on him. Hey, take a look at my build. Give me a rating, 1 out of 10, or give me a rating of 9 out of 10. Pick a number between 9 and 10. With the second means being the Switch Charger, arguably one of the best additions they made to the Switch Axe in Monster Hunter Rise. Again, costing a single wire bug, by pressing ZL plus A, you can launch yourself forward and regenerate a large chunk of switch gauge. Also, your switch gauge doesn't decrease for a short time, so you just get free swings with your sword for a little bit. And remember what I said earlier about the whole reload animation nonsense? Yeah, this skill just bypasses the need to do that entirely. If you're smart enough and properly space out your uses of the Switch Charger, you can almost effectively have infinite sword time. In between sharpening, of course, because this weapon loses sharpness like no other. If it isn't clear by now, the Switch Axe really clicks with me, which I found incredibly surprising considering a weapon with 2 separate charging mechanics and no defensive capabilities whatsoever goes outside of what I'd consider to be my comfort zone. Maybe it just boils down to objectively, it is a powerful weapon, and subjectively, it is just freaking awesome. If you have been hiding behind shields or using ranged weaponry from a safe distance, this might just be what you need to break that mold. I would like to sincerely thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please consider giving it a like and subscribing if you haven't done so already. Hard to think I'm already almost done with the series. It feels like I didn't start all that long ago, and yet there's only 3 more weapons to go. And I've been thinking about what the next game is going to be for a while now. I've kind of been eyeballing that new Monster Hunter Stories, especially considering I never played the first one. You know, following the same general format, streaming 3 times a week with a video at the end of the week. If you have an opinion on the matter, let's have a discussion in the comment section. Next video is going to be on the insect glaive, another weapon I've never even touched. Let's hope it's as fun as this one. But until then, this is not goodbye for good, just goodbye for now.
I believe Devil Joe does that.
Oh. Wait. That's an ambush. Uh-oh, I'm going into the cave.
Okay.
No!
It wasn't me.
Oh,
Why didn't you stand on top of me, Kanade?
I thought
You could have learned.
I thought I had a few more seconds. Oh my god. Alright. Adding 1 to the death counter. Here we go.